YouTube, Niner Empire, what is going down? Welcome back to another video. So just finished wrapping up uploading the post-game thoughts video. If you guys haven't checked that out, definitely check that out because this video kind of goes hand in hand with the last one a little bit. Just want to touch on the defensive line a little more and how underwhelming they truly have been really all season. So I'll say this first stat here. Nick Bosa, according to PFF, won 1 of 40 reps against Vikings left tackle Christian Darrisaw last night. 1 of 40, which means less than, 5% Nick Bosa won rep-wise against Christian Darrisaw. Clearly, Nick Bosa regarded as one of the best defensive players in football. Probably a top, in my opinion, he's the best pass rusher in the NFL. I don't think anybody can think you can really argue that, until somebody else wins Defensive Player of the Year. But the fact of the matter is he's widely regarded as a top defensive player in the year, or in the league. Top 1 to 2 pass rusher. And you only win 1 of 40 reps against left tackle Christian Darrisaw. Now, not trying to bash Christian Darrisaw whatsoever because he's clearly a good player. But what I'm saying is that can't happen. Nick Bosa is just not playing like himself, it almost feels like. And he's not dealing with any injury. He's as healthy as ever. I don't know why else he would be struggling. Maybe it's because he didn't do maybe it's because he didn't participate in training camp. Maybe it's because he really hasn't, practiced full game speed throughout the offseason. You guys got to think he literally signed his deal within 72 hours of him of the 49ers, playing week 1 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Immediately came in. 49ers didn't really limit him that game. They did, but they didn't. Maybe it's something because of that. Maybe Nick Bosa is getting off to a slower start because, he hasn't gotten as many reps as he should have in the offseason. Maybe that can correlate to his play so far this season. But when it comes to a guy like Nick Bosa, you expect him to, no matter if he holds out, no matter how much he practices in the offseason, you expect Nick Bosa to immediately come in and make an impact. And no matter what, when Nick Bosa's on the field, he's making an impact because it obviously keeps the offense on their toes. Nick Bosa is one of them guys where you have to think, when he's on the field, where's 97 at? It's always in the back of the offense's mind, right? So he's clearly making an impact being on the field, but at the same time, he's been underwhelming. He hasn't been the same Nick Bosa a year ago. The only thing I can think of is that correlates to him not getting a lot of practices and game speed-wise in the offseason. He didn't participate in OTAs, no training camp. Again, he came back 72 hours before week 1 took place. So maybe he's off to a slower start. Again, I really didn't expect that, no matter if Nick Bosa practices or not. He's a player I think you expect to immediately come in and make an impact, no matter if he practices or not. Another thing I'd like to talk about is obviously the most pivotal play of the game, and I talked about this in the post-game thoughts video. The 49ers rushed 7 men, okay? 7 players were rushed in the last 30 seconds of the half, obviously, when Jordan Addison caught that 60-yard touchdown to put the Vikings up 2 scores going into halftime. So it was the first 7-man pass rush in the last 30 seconds of a half in opposing territory in the entire NFL since Week 11 of 2020, according to Next Gen Stats. And as everybody knows, clearly the 49ers paid dearly for that. Again, can't happen. If you're rushing 7 people, it has to result into a sack. And that may be a stretch. Some people probably think that's a stretch to say, but it's not. When you have a fierce front 7 like the 49ers do, There's absolutely no reason why that play is not resulting in a sack or at least a Kirk Cousins throwaway or something. And again, that play, I mean, you tackle Jordan Addison during that time. In bounds, you're going into halftime and the score is 7-10. So, I mean, clearly, again, the 49ers paid dearly for that play. I'm a firm believer, and I think everybody can agree that this 49ers defense will eventually come alive. I don't know if it's something that Steve Wilks has to scheme up. Steve Wilks has to change a lot of shit, clearly, because whatever he's doing now isn't working, and it's not working against, two teams that the 49ers should have comfortably beat. And like I said, Cleveland Browns, great defense. They played well. Our offense didn't play good last week. And then you look at the Minnesota Vikings. I said in the preview video before this Monday Night Football game, the two things the 49ers have to do defensively to win the game, I think the two biggest things going into that game was limiting Jordan Addison over the top, which clearly the 49ers didn't do. And not only that, but getting home to Kirk Cousins. No matter, Kirk Cousins is now 3-11, and he is 3-11 or 3-10 on Monday Night Football games. And I said going into the game, just because Kirk Cousins is 2-10 on Monday Night Football does not mean they cannot get a win and beat the 49ers. That's exactly what happened. The two biggest things the 49ers shouldn't have let happen, and that resulted in another loss for the 49ers. The Jordan Addison thing was the biggest thing. Jordan Addison was called upon to step up with Justin Jefferson out and not playing for this game, and he did exactly that. So, again, all these defensive struggles, I expect to come to a halt. I don't think this 49ers defense will play like this the rest of the season. I said last week after the Cleveland Browns loss, I don't think the 49ers underestimated the Cleveland Browns, and I think it's the same for this game too. I don't think they underestimated the Vikings, but at the same time, you look at what happened, you look at how the defense played, it's almost like they did. They did underestimate the Vikings. Maybe the players didn't, but maybe the coaches did. Either way, bad defensive play resulted in the loss. I think if there's one person or if there's one thing that you can blame the loss on, it's Steve Wilks and the defense. The offense didn't help out either, but I would definitely think you blame the defense for this loss before you blame the offense. It was a team loss all in all, but there's no excuse for the 49ers defensive play through 7 weeks of the NFL season. Another stat, Danielle Hunter, 49ers pass rusher, Vikings pass rusher, he's been talked about in a potential trade to land in San Francisco. But Danielle Hunter has more sacks than Javon Hargrave, Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead, Drake Jackson, Kalia Davis, Kevin Givens, Cleveland Farrell, and I think I'm missing one more person combined. So, in other words, Danielle Hunter has more sacks than anybody on the 49ers defensive line combined. Anybody that really gets playing time on this 49ers defensive line, Danielle Hunter has more sacks than. Again, if that doesn't scream underwhelming for this 49ers defensive line, I don't know what does. And I hope, you have to think the 49ers defensive line knows how bad they played. You have to think the defense knows how bad they played. And I would expect them, being a elite defense, to turn shit around very quick. I expect Steve Wilks to make necessary adjustments. But again, what happened in last week's game against Cleveland, what happened in the loss, carried over to this week. And you expect a team like the 49ers to move on from that loss. That's another thing I talked about going into this game. The 49ers have to move on from the Cleveland Browns loss and focus on the Minnesota Vikings. They just didn't do that. Again, I mean, it's just bad team play all the way around. Yeah, the 49ers were missing Trent Williams and Deebo Samuel. But, again, I mean, you still have to beat the Minnesota Vikings and the Cleveland Browns. There's no excuse. The 49ers should have beat the Cleveland Browns. Really, in all reality, they should be sitting at 6-1 right now. They honestly should be sitting at 7-0, but clearly they're not. And they've lost to arguably the two worst teams that they have played this season. I think the Giants are probably worse than both the Cleveland Browns and the Minnesota Vikings this year. But you guys get the point. Yeah, we beat the Cardinals too. I mean, either way, we've lost to two pretty bad teams in the past 2 weeks, and it's all started with the defense and poor offensive play. And it's almost like if the defense isn't playing good, the offense hasn't been able to step up and fill that void and score more points. So team loss. Nothing but a team loss through in and through out, but there's no excuse for this 49ers defense to be playing as bad as they have been. It all starts with the defensive line. Things need to change. I think they will change. I think this 49ers defense knows how bad they've played over the past couple weeks, and I don't think it's going to carry on, or it shouldn't carry on any longer. But again, you got Cincinnati coming up off of a bye week. They're hot. They have kind of started to get shit rolling in the past couple weeks. If Jordan Addison is doing this stuff and putting up those type of stats against the 49ers, God only knows what Jamar Chase will do and T. Higgins will do against the 49ers secondary. Next week, I can tell you right now, the 49ers will not win if this pass rush does not come alive. That's as simple as that. Joe Burrow's not having the best season, but again, I mean, I think the Bengals are getting into a groove at the right time. They've been underwhelming as well. They've been another team that's kind of been underwhelming throughout the first few weeks throughout the NFL season, but they've come alive in the past couple weeks. Especially the Burrow and Jamar Chase connection has, so it's going to be an interesting game. I can tell you that right now. I mean, the 49ers have to go out and, take care of business against the Bengals, get their confidence back. And it all starts with moving on from this loss the past 2 weeks. It all starts with moving on from these losses and making defensive adjustments. Brock Purdy has to play well. He's not in the clear whatsoever. Everybody has to play well. Christian McCaffrey needs to limit the fumbles. Team losses straight up through in and through out over the past 2 weeks. But the underwhelming defensive play has probably been the biggest shock so far of this 49ers season.